is going to blow your mind. Imagine driving alone on a foggy night and picking up a ghost. On a cold, foggy night, Jack drove home along a desolate country road. The moon hid behind thick clouds, and his car's headlights were the only light piercing the darkness. Rounding a bend, he saw a drenched young woman by the roadside, her thumb out in silent plea. Jack hesitated, but stopped. "Need a ride?" he asked. She nodded, climbed in, but said nothing. Miles of silence passed. Jack asked, "Where are you headed?" She whispered, "Home." Her clothes were old-fashioned, and dread crept over him. The fog thickened. The road stretched endlessly. In the rearview mirror, no reflection. Heart pounding, he looked at the passenger seat. She stared at him, cold, lifeless, and smiled. "You shouldn't have picked me up," she echoed. Jack slammed the brakes. She vanished. Years later, he learned about the ghostly hitchhiker, eternally seeking a ride home after her fatal accident. Jack never drove that road at night again, but he could never forget. "What I wish I knew before picking up a hitchhiker at midnight." "Yeah, it's not what you think. It was past midnight." Sarah's car hummed as she drove through a dense forest. Then she saw him, a hitchhiker, face hidden beneath a hood. She hesitated, but the cold night pushed her to stop. "Where are you headed?" she asked. "Just up the road," he replied, voice gravelly. Minutes passed in silence. The air grew colder. "Do you believe in ghosts?" he asked, breaking the quiet. Sarah laughed nervously. "Not really. Why? Because sometimes," he whispered, leaning closer, "they believe in you." His hood fell back, revealing hollow eyes. Sarah gasped, nearly swerving off the road. "Let me out," she stammered. He pointed ahead, just a bit further. She sped up, desperate. Finally, a clearing appeared. She pulled over, and he vanished into the night. The next day, she learned about a man who died hitchhiking on that road years ago. His ghost still seeks a ride home. Sarah never drove alone after dark again. "What I wish I knew before picking up a hitchhiker at midnight." "Yeah, it's not what you think. It was past midnight." Sarah's car hummed as she drove through a dense forest. Then she saw him, a hitchhiker, face hidden beneath a hood. She hesitated, but the cold night pushed her to stop. "Where are you headed?" she asked. "Just up the road," he replied, voice gravelly. Minutes passed in silence. The air grew colder. "Do you believe in ghosts?" he asked, breaking the quiet. Sarah laughed nervously. "Not really. Why? Because sometimes," he whispered, leaning closer, "they believe in you." His hood fell back, revealing hollow eyes. Sarah gasped, nearly swerving off the road. "Let me out," she stammered. He pointed ahead, just a bit further. She sped up, desperate. Finally, a clearing appeared. She pulled over, and he vanished into the night. The next day, she learned about a man who died hitchhiking on that road years ago. His ghost still seeks a ride home. Sarah never drove alone after dark again.
In a tucked-away hamlet shrouded by a primeval forest, an endearing antique shop stood, its windows cloaked in a film of dust and its sign, "Timeless Treasures," creaking with age, whispered tales of the enigmas concealed within. On a stormy afternoon, Emily, a young girl, and her mother found themselves seeking refuge within its welcoming walls. As Emily ventured through the labyrinth of curiosities, her gaze was captivated by a porcelain doll perched high on a shelf. This doll was a unique piece of art, its porcelain skin radiating an almost ethereal glow, its eyes shimmering with a lifelike depth. Its dark curls framed a delicate face, graced with a painted smile that was both welcoming and eerie. Emily felt an inexplicable attraction towards the doll, and her pleas to her mother for its purchase were irresistible. That evening, the doll, christened Annabelle by Emily, found a place on her bedside table. As Emily succumbed to sleep, she could have sworn she saw Annabelle's eyes shimmering in the moonlight. As days unfolded, Emily's mother started noticing peculiar happenings around the house. Objects seemed to have a life of their own. Doors creaked open at the oddest hours, and a bone-chilling draft pervaded the summer air. Emily, however, remained blissfully ignorant, engrossed in her conversations with Annabelle, her newfound confidant. One chilling evening, Emily's mother decided to probe the matter. As she neared Emily's room, she discerned faint whispers. On opening the door, a chilling sight met her eyes. Emily, sitting on her bed, whispering to the doll, her eyes glazed over. The room temperature dropped and a sinister aura took over. The doll's eyes seemed to bore into her with a malevolent stare. Resolute to purge their home of this evil, Emily's mother seized Annabelle and stormed into the basement. She rummaged through old boxes, seeking something to contain the doll's wickedness. At last, she stumbled upon an ancient chest, dusty and forgotten. She secured Annabelle within, locking the chest and burying it deep within the basement. A semblance of peace graced the household. The eerie happenings ceased, and Emily gradually reverted to her cheerful self, though she occasionally inquired about her missing friend. Years passed, and the family relocated, leaving the house to the mercy of time. It languished in disrepair, and tales of its haunting rippled through the town. Eventually, new owners were drawn to the property, lured by its low price and scenic locale. During renovations, they unearthed the old chest. Intrigued, they forced it open, revealing the immaculate porcelain doll. Oblivious to its dark past, they positioned it on the mantelpiece, deeming it a quaint antique. That very night, the whispers echoed once again, the house colder than ever. The doll's eyes shimmered anew, and the ancient malevolence awoke, poised to perpetuate its legacy of terror.
The asphalt blurred beneath my tires. My head throbbed. Another dead-end business trip, another wasted week. I just wanted to get home. My phone buzzed. No signal.
Great, I muttered, pushing deeper into the heart of nowhere.
The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of blood orange and bruised purple. The familiar unease of driving alone at night started to creep in, amplified by the day's frustrations. I switched on the radio, hoping for some semblance of company, but only static answered. I thought about my wife, Sarah, probably already asleep by now. I pictured our quiet house, bathed in the warm glow of the porch light. It felt a million miles away. I sighed, pushing down on the gas pedal, desperate to outrun the growing sense of isolation. My GPS blinked, the screen flickering with a message about a detour.
Fantastic, I grumbled, already dreading the added time.
The detour directed me off the main highway and onto a narrow, unmaintained back road. The pavement was cracked and pockmarked, littered with fallen branches and the occasional dead animal. The woods on either side pressed close, the trees gnarled and skeletal in the fading light. With each passing mile, the silence deepened, broken only by the crunch of gravel under my tires and the rustling of unseen creatures in the woods. My headlights, the only source of light in the encroaching darkness, cast long, eerie shadows that danced and twisted along the roadside. Then, I saw him, a lone figure standing by the side of the road, shrouded in the gathering gloom. He was tall and gaunt, his features obscured by the shadows of a wide-brimmed hat. He stuck out his thumb as I approached. My foot hovered over the brake pedal. An internal debate raged, common decency versus the unsettling aura surrounding the hitchhiker.
Need a lift? I asked, my voice raspy from disuse. Something about the lone figure drew me in. Against my better judgment, I pulled over, rolling down the window just enough to speak.
"Thanks kindly," he rasped, his voice like dry leaves crunching underfoot. He turned, and the headlights caught his face. It was a roadmap of hard living, etched with countless lines and shadowed by the brim of his hat. His eyes, though, those were what truly unsettled me. They were cold, calculating, and seemed to bore into me with an unnerving intensity.
He tossed a battered duffel bag onto the back seat and settled into the passenger seat. The interior of my car, usually filled with the comforting scent of old leather and pine air freshener, now seemed to hold the man's presence. A strange mix of dust, sweat, and something faintly metallic.
Rain lashed the windshield. Thunder rattled the car. John squinted, gripping the steering wheel. He was driving home from a business trip, eager for a warm bed. The highway stretched ahead, dark and lonely. Each bend in the road brought a fresh wave of fatigue. John rubbed his eyes, fighting to stay awake.
He turned up the radio, searching for a distraction. Static, just like his luck tonight.
John's shoulders ached. His eyelids felt heavy. He had been driving for hours, the storm showing no signs of letting up. He glanced at the clock on the dashboard. Almost midnight. A wave of loneliness washed over him. He missed his family, their warmth and laughter.
Suddenly, a figure appeared in the headlights' glare. A man standing by the side of the road, waving frantically. John hesitated. He wasn't supposed to pick up hitchhikers, company policy, but the man looked desperate. He pulled over, the engine sputtering in the silence. The man approached, his face hidden by a rain-soaked hat.
Thank you, the man rasped, his voice hoarse. You're a lifesaver.
He climbed into the passenger seat, bringing with him a strange, musty smell.
Where are you headed?
John asked, trying to sound casual.
Mumbling. A town called Ravenscroft.
The man mumbled a name, a town John had never heard of. He tried to make conversation, but the hitchhiker only offered short, cryptic answers.
So, what brings you out here tonight?
Just needed to get away.
John felt a shiver run down his spine. Something wasn't right. The man's gaze lingered on him, cold and calculating. A bolt of lightning illuminated the car, revealing the hitchhiker's face. It was gaunt, almost skeletal, with eyes that seemed to burn with an unnatural light. He began to talk, his voice low and menacing.
There's a curse, passed down through generations. A curse I'm desperate to be free of.
His eyes gleamed with a sinister light, and a cruel smile played on his lips.
You helped me. Now you must carry it.
John slammed on the brakes, his heart pounding. He turned to face the hitchhiker, but he was gone. The passenger seat was empty. John was alone. The storm raged on, but a different kind of chill ran down his spine. He could still feel the hitchhiker's presence, hear his chilling words.
What just happened?
He drove through the night, haunted by the encounter. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that he was not free. The curse had followed him home,